Hello everybody, today we are going to talk about the inheritance between classes. But first I will give you an example from the real life. Look, I have got blue eyes, the color blue, right? And I have got them because also my father has blue eyes. I inherited that blue eyes from my father, probably. So the color got inherited. This could be, in the programming situation, a property. This could be a variable, right? That color, that blue thing. It could be inherited from, for example, other class, right? So inheritance means that we are taking after some kind of properties from other classes, right? We can use properties from other classes, for example. Okay, so we'll make an example that will be connected with points. Let's create a class that we will call point. Just simple point in one dimension. And in one dimension a point has got only one coordinate. So for example int x. This thing of course is private, right? And now in the public section we'll create the constructor that will take one parameter, and we'll create the destructor, and we'll create the function that will be able to get that x. So int get x, and we can return it. That can be in line function, so return x, and void set x, that will be sent here, right? Now we'll go to here and create all that things that we've just declared. So we'll start from the constructor, then we will create a destructor, then we will focus on the thing here, so void point set x, like that. Okay, let's try to build and run that. Oh, sorry, everything works fine. Now let's create here the global function. Let's create a declaration on it for it. Operation on points, then definition of it, and we'll use it inside our main function. So now we can create an instance of that class. So point, we call it p1. Now send to the output the value that is in x. Let's see if it's working. As you can see, it's not working. Why it's not working? Because notice that we didn't send anything here. Now it's working fine. Notice that we have got now only the constructor that is what? That is not default constructor, right? It's not default constructor. It is taking one parameter, one argument here, right, from here. So we should create also something like that, or now I would like to tell you about something like that. We can here type something like equals 0, and it means that when we do not send anything here like that, the default value will be assigned from here. So we can also, for example, do like 66. As you can see now, it's 66. So this thing is the value that is in x when x is not sent. Okay, it's a bit faster now, right? We need only one constructor, we don't need to create second constructor. Okay, now let's do something like that. Let's send to the output from the constructor from the point class has just been invoked, something like that. And now here the destructor from the point class has just been invoked. As you can see, the constructor and destructor has been invoked. Everything works fine. We'll need that thing to explain a few things soon. Okay, so now we have a point. And now imagine a situation like that. I want to create a class that will represent the point in 2 dimensions. So right now we will have the 2 coordinates, right? We'll have the coordinate x and y. So it means that I should now write the function getX and setX again. So I would need to repeat that code here again, right? That here and that. It's taking time, and you know, if I had to change something in that functions, I would again need to change it in 2 places. Wow! Again, it will take more time. So this is the time where we should use the inheritance, because inheritance means that we are going to use the methods or properties from other classes, right? We can use them. Well, we inherit them in other classes, right? And in order to do it, we should write something like that. The colon here, and then we say how do we inherit. We will inherit in the public way. Soon I will tell you how it's done. And then we are saying what class we want to inherit from. So I will just say that I want to inherit from that point. This thing means that I am doing something like that. Let's do it that way, and this will be in the public section. It means that constructor and destructor is not copied here, and things that are private, hey, you know, there is a private modifier. This thing is private, this thing belongs only to that guy, it's not going to be copied here also. So when we do something like that, we did exactly something like that. We copied that declarations, and we also copied the definition, right? We can now use them by creating that type of class. Okay, let's go back to the place like that, and now we should think about that x. Well, we need that x, right, in that point 2 dimensional also. So how to do that? To let it be here, but still I don't want to allow people from, for example, here to get access to that things without using the setX and getX, right? How to do that? Then we should use a modifier that is called protected. The protected means that it will be private for people like that here, for the code like here, right? We won't be able to access it directly. We'll need to use the getX and setX, but it will be able to be inherited in the class that we are inheriting things, like in the point 2 dimensional. Now I'd like to also tell you how are that class called. This class is called base class, right? Sometimes people call it the parent class because it's parent, right? Like my father, I told you, right? I inherited from him my eyes, and sometimes it's called also the super class, because it's super, it's the first class, right? That class here is called not base but derived class. Point to dimensional is a class derived from the point, right? Okay, it can also be called child or the subclass. Great. Now we know how that classes are called, so it would be easier to talk about it. And what? Now we need to define the new things in the two-dimensional class, right? So what do we need? We need the second coordinate. We don't need to think about that things here, right? They are already defined in that class, so we don't need to lose our time. Notice that of course here aren't many properties, and this thing wouldn't take us much time, but imagine classes that have, for example, 500 of code, and then yes, we are saving time. Okay, now I will say here something like protected, and of course we need to create the coordinate y. Why? We will place in the protected section, because notice that later we can create a class that we will call the point 3D, and it will what? Inherit from the point 2 dimensional, right? And this thing I would like to tell you, you should do as an exercise later, okay? So we have now the y, then we'll create in the public section our own constructor, so point 2 dimensional, and here I will do something like that because we need two things specified here. We will also create the point to the destructor, right? And now let's go here, and we'll go into point 2D, then into that place here, int x and int y. And now notice one thing, we can do it that way and everything will work fine. Well, let's create the destructor also. Everything should work fine, but there is a problem now. Notice that when we change something in that constructor here, it means we should change also something here, right? So we have to change it in two places. That's the first thing. The second thing is that imagine situation that this constructor has got here like 500 lines. It means we will have to repeat them here. Now it has only 2 lines, right? But imagine situation like that. Because of that, in the constructors, in the derived class, in the child class, in the subclass, we should only do something like initialization of things that are new in that class, right? So we have only y coordinate new here, and use the constructor from here. We can use it that way. We are adding here the colon, then you are using here the name of the constructor that is the base class for us, and we'll just send here the x that is here, right? The x is sent here. And now let's see if it works fine. Everything is working fine. Okay, now let's create that point 2 dimensional, and now let's build and run that program. As you can see, everything worked fine. We could use the get x easy, right? I would like to show you now also how our constructors working. Let's do something like that. The constructor from the point 2 dimensional has been just invoked, and now the destructor from the 2 point, and now I've been the run program. Now look, the constructors were invoked in the order that from the base class and then from the derived class, right? The destructor were invoked in the different way. First it was invoked from the derived class, from the child class, and then the destructor from the parent class was invoked. And now why it happened that way? Because notice, well, how can we construct something here when we don't know anything about things here, right? So that's why first we need to use the constructor from that place, and then we can use the constructor from that place. Okay? And now why the order of destructors are like that? Because how can we destruct first something what is above us when we have to first destruct things that are in the right class, right? We need to destruct things that are inside first, right? We can start from the class here. This is kinda logical thing. Okay. It means also that the constructor from here must be invoked. So even if I do it that way, right, I'm not going to send the x there, the constructor from point class has just been invoked. So always the base, the parent constructor will be invoked. It has to be invoked always. Okay? Because we need to know in the class that is child how to create things that are above us, right? Okay. Now I like to tell you about that public word here. Let's do it in the comment. Look, when we do something like class point to the and then public point, it means that everything what is inside point to the dimensional, not excluding the constructor and destructor, will be in point to the dimensional. Well, everything what is inside point, right? Because we are trying to get things from here, right, to here. Everything what is inside point, excluding constructor and destructor, will be in point 2D. Like that. When something was private in the class point, it will be changed to cannot access. It means that we can't use the variable x in the point 2D if we had here private, right? Okay. The protected will be still protected. The public will be still public. If we did it that way, the private still won't be able to be accessed, protected will be protected, but public will be changed to the protected. And if we did it that way, if we inherit private way, this will be private and this will be private, but private still cannot be accessed. Okay, so how to remember that thing? Well, just remember that when something is public, nothing is being changed. In every situation, the private things are just things that we cannot access, right? In the protected situation, just protected and public is changed to protected. In private way, the protected and public is changed to the private. So what does it mean? Well, if we did it that way, the private thing, it means that all that functions would be in the private section of them. And because they would be in the private section, I wouldn't be able to use them from place like here. Of course, situations like that might be useful. They are a bit rare. I just want you to know how does it work. We'll change it to the public way because we need it to be inherited that way, right? We want it to work that way. Everything works fine. Now I'd like to tell you about two more things. Well, we need to also create here get y, return y, and let's create the set y function, point to dimensional set y. So this y equals y, and now let's see if it works. P2 set y, let's change it to, for example, 50 and get y here. Before, let's do something like that. So it means that y here should be 50. Of course, we need to change the declaration, and as you can see, it works fine. And now imagine a situation like that. I want to create a function that will change both the things at the same time. So I will create something like set x and y, and it will take two parameters. And now I will define that thing here. And now what should I do? Should I do it that way, this x and then this y? Should I do it that way? No, never do it that way, because remember, again, when I change something in here and when I change something in here, I would need to also change it in here. So I will need to remember that code, right? That's the first thing. The second thing, if I had here like 1000 lines of code, I would need to copy that thing here, right? That's why we should use the function from above. Well, from above, from here, and we can use it that way. So now we can do, for example, like that, and you will notice that everything is working fine. 5 and 50, right? When I don't change it, it will be 10 and 67. Well, 0 and 67. What happened? Probably I didn't use the point here. I removed it before and I didn't add it again. So yeah, now it will work fine. Okay, it's now 10 and 67. Because notice that when we don't use it like that, the constructor from the point has been invoked, like it said here. But because we didn't send anything here, right? The default value will be assigned here, so it will be 0. So if I change this thing to something like that, you will notice that this value will be shown, as you can see. So the default value was used, but now everything will work fine. Okay, now the last thing. Hey, I would like to have now changed a bit the function void set x. I want to change it a bit. I want it different. I don't want it to be like that here. So how to do that? Well, normal. I will just do something like that. Point to D, and now int and x, and I will set to xx, and here I will do something like I am from point to D, and here I will send I am from point. Of course, this is just different things in that functions. I don't have good example here, right? But there might be many different instructions. So I just wanna show you the problem. Now let's use the function, for example, the set x, right? And what happens? As you can see, I am from point to D. So when we do something like that, the function that is going to be used will be the one that we have type here. Okay, but there is one thing we should remember. It doesn't mean that we remove that function totally. We can still access that place by using something like that. p2, then dot point, then two colons, and now as you can see, we have the message here, I am from point. So if we want to use still that function, not that function, we can use the construction like that. Sometimes, of course, something like that is very useful because we want to have we want to add something to the class, to the function that is here, and we don't have access to that class directly because we are making the child class from the class that somebody wrote, right? We can get access to it. It's just saved. We can remove any characters here. We can just use it. Okay. So then, something like that is really useful. Okay, that's all in that lesson. Thank you very much.